You wake up with a scratchy throat and reach for a pill before you've even opened both eyes. No thought required. That's the modern move. But strip that pill away. Strip away the pharmacy, the hospital, the entire system. You are left standing exactly where your ancestors stood for hundreds of thousands of years. No antibiotics, no anesthesia, no germ theory, just a body, a wound, and whatever the people around you happen to know. So how did they not just die constantly? That's the real question underneath this topic, because the popular image of ancient healing is a caveman chewing bark and hoping for the best. That image is wrong. And it's wrong in a way that should unsettle you a little. Here's the foundation. In 2015, researchers studying a Neanderthal skeleton from Shanidar Cave in Iraq confirmed something remarkable. The individual, known as Shanidar 1, had survived a crushed arm, partial blindness, and severe hearing loss, likely for years, before he eventually died. An injury like that doesn't heal on its own. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. Someone kept him alive long after he stopped being useful for hunting. That single skeleton breaks the stereotype instantly. This wasn't survival of the fittest in some brutal discard the weak sense. This was organized, sustained caregiving tens of thousands of years before anyone imagined a hospital. But hold on, a skeptic would say this proves loyalty, not medicine. Feeding an injured relative isn't the same as treating an infection. That's a fair point. Keeping someone alive with food and warmth is different from actually intervening in disease. So the deeper question remains, did ancient humans have real medical knowledge or just social bonds strong enough to carry the wounded? This is where it gets stranger. In 2017, a team led by researcher Laura Weirich analyzed ancient dental plaque from a Neanderthal at El Cedrón in Spain. Trapped in that tartar for 50,000 years, they found DNA traces of poplar, a plant containing salicylic acid, the same compound behind aspirin. The same individual also carried DNA from a natural penicillin-producing mold. This person appeared to have a dental abscess and a stomach illness and seemed to be self-medicating with two separate compounds modern pharmacology would recognize immediately. Let that sit for a moment. Before written language, before farming, before anything resembling civilization, something in that population had already identified two chemically active substances and was combining them with intention. Now zoom out. Because the pattern doesn't stop with one skeleton. Ancient humans lived embedded inside ecosystems most of us would find completely unreadable. They didn't have textbooks, but they had time. Generational time. Centuries of trial, failure, and death filtered down into memory and story. If a plant killed someone, that knowledge spread. If a plant stopped bleeding or broke a fever, that spread too, slowly, painfully, through the only method available, watching what happened to whoever tried it first. That is not primitive. That is empirical testing, without a lab coat running for thousands of generations. The evidence keeps escalating. In 2012, archaeologists working at Blombos Cave in South Africa uncovered a 70,000-year-old container holding a mixed paste of ochre, charcoal, and animal fat, sealed inside a shell. Researchers argued this substance functioned as a compound used for skin protection or wound treatment, meaning early humans were not just gathering ingredients, they were formulating them. Here's why that matters. A formulation implies memory of a recipe. It implies someone taught someone else exactly how much of each ingredient to use and in what order, and that instruction survived long enough to be repeated and refined. But here's where a harder skeptical case shows up, and it deserves real weight. Maybe that ochre mixture was cosmetic, not medical. Maybe it was symbolic, tied to ritual or status, not injury. The residue itself cannot speak. It cannot tell us whether it touched a wound or a ceremony. Archaeologists cannot always separate healing from meaning because, for ancient humans, those two things were often the same act. Treating a body and marking a body were not always different categories. That uncertainty is real, and it does not fully resolve. But it does not erase the pattern either, because the third piece of evidence points somewhere harder to argue with. Setting fractured bones. Multiple skeletal remains from sites across Europe show healed breaks that were clearly aligned before healing, not left crooked. A bone does not straighten itself. Someone pulled it into place, held it there, and kept it stable for weeks while it fused. That requires anatomical understanding. It requires patience. It requires someone willing to sit beside another person's pain for as long as it took. Bring that back to you for a second. Every time you've ever gotten a cast or watched a nurse set a splint, you were watching the tail end of a chain of knowledge stretching back before agriculture, before cities, before anyone thought to write anything down. This is where the story stops being about medicine and starts being about something bigger. Because caregiving like this doesn't happen by accident. It happens because a group decided that a wounded, blind, or crippled person was still worth keeping alive. That decision is not biological instinct, it's a form of morality, expressed through action, thousands of years before anyone had a word for morality. The honest answer is that we don't know exactly how much ancient humans understood versus how much they simply repeated because it worked. We don't know how many treatments failed silently, how many people died from infections no plant could touch, how many generations it took to learn what not to do. The fossil record shows survival. It rarely shows the failures that came before it. So the question was never really how did they survive without doctors? The real question is how much of what you call medicine today is just their oldest idea, still running, wearing a white coat instead of animal fur. Next time you take a pill without thinking, remember someone chewed that same chemistry off a tree first and didn't know if it would kill them.